It's time to connect the dots. I hope that you learned something or, learning about those models has made you think a little bit. But what are some more direct implications for you in language intervention? If you look at the behavioral model, we know that this approach is very effective with children with autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disabilities. There are some concerns with generalization, but broad treatments, I guess strategies under ABA would include things like discrete trial training, the MAN model, verbal behavior, and PECS, which is a picture exchange communication system. All of those interventions kind of come from this model. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to you about each way to teach language, but we will come back to some of these things like discrete trial training and PECS when we're talking about specific disabilities and just techniques you use to teach them. But I don't recall how much your book goes into detail about these. You should be able to find it on there, but we will talk about some of this later as it directly applies to you teaching not just language, but academics. The nativist model. Programs that aim to change the way children process sounds. That kind of came out of this model of us having this language acquisition device. Some programs out there, Fast Forward, aerobics, auditory training. I know I worked with a young girl with traumatic brain injury when I was in school, and I tutored her as a job, and she used this Fast Forward program. And there's a lot of instruction that involves language, rules, grammar, since they think this model would say this is really critical and helps them apply those rules in new situations. So that Fast Forward program really did help this child that I worked with. What came out of the semantic cognitive model? When children have something to talk about, it can and will facilitate motivation to express their ideas. This idea of the zone of proximal development is it helps children who are ready for the next step take it clearer, take it quicker. Excuse me. This would be like milieu teaching, where you arrange the environment to encourage a targeted behavior and targeted language. And it basically means, what are they close to learning and how do we get them there? As almost like a broader sense of what are they learning, and if they're close to learning this, what else could they learn with that at the same time? And pardon me for not mentioning this before, when we're talking about the nativist model, it's not necessarily appropriate for kids with all disabilities, but this semantic cognitive model so far interventions that come from this may be appropriate for children with all disabilities. I believe also, speaking of this, that I have included a YouTube video with some examples of some of these interventions or I guess programs or strategies if you're interested in learning about them a little bit more. Okay, the social interactionist model. This is particularly helpful with kids so far that might have some really challenging, stubborn behavior because it's very naturalistic. It very much follows the child's lead. A couple of areas of disability that this is successful with, honestly across all, but would be Down syndrome, those with Down syndrome, and those with autism spectrum. And stubborn, I don't like that word because it can have a negative connotation, but just meaning children that have a really hard time doing something that's not of high interest to them. And so in this model, if it's really about social interaction and kind of naturalistic following their lead, then it's probably going to work better for them because they're not going to spend any of their time and energy fighting against what you're doing because they've kind of chosen it in a way. It's that incidental teaching approach. What can we take from these contemporary models? That the connections that are made that are between different types of from different types of experiences are all important, and that teaching methods can and should use strategy training, meaning teach them to use a multi-step method for solving a problem. So, an example, if children with a learning disability have difficulty matching experiences with their long-term memory, you got to keep trying to make different connections for them to see if you can build that pathway. If it didn't work one way, try it another way. Give them a different kind of experience. And really about helping children learn the skills necessary that are essential for language learning, and using multisensory instruction to help them connect and therefore learn from experiences. The last thing is, if you would like, I would like you to go and choose this language acquisition model from the following list. And these are ones we just talked about: behavioral, nativist, semantic cognitive, etc. And then consider this Chanel. She's a 6-year-old student with language delays. You want to help her learn the meaning of new words. So using the language acquisition model you've chosen, describe a method that you would use to help Chantel learn the meaning of words. And again, you're just trying to show me you have some understanding of an implication of a model that you choose. So when you show me that, it shows me understanding of the model, right? So I'm not going to ask you to do that for all of them. To be quite honest, as I'm recording this, I haven't completely decided what your different activities will be as you go through these lectures. So I don't know at this point if it's required, but I highly, highly, highly encourage you to take the moment and do this just to solidify your learning about these models, because they do have relevance. As always, stop, email me questions or concerns. I learn along with you. Each time I'm teaching these things, I learn something new or consider something new. So definitely reach out and ask questions. It benefits all of us. And then for next time, you do need to finish this chapter quiz and then start reading chapters 5 and 6. I lecture on those at the same time. And then if you'd like, you can take the chapter 6 quiz, or you can wait for the lecture. And I'll see you then.